So you said it's been a good year in tech.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing you've enjoyed most in tech?
Definitely AI.
Okay.
That's what I've spent the most time playing around with. And, AI seems to have gone through a bit of a renaissance in 2022. Part of that, of course, is the software, but also there have been hardware advancements that have gotten us like orders of magnitude improvement. So, I was playing around with the image generation stuff. Obviously, the ChatGPT and other language text-based stuff. I published an article in Bitcoin Magazine that I don't think I've even told anyone this yet, but the majority of it was actually written with AI. It was this dystopian future CBDC piece.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's an exclusive. What Bitcoin did exclusive. You got to dig that one out.
Yeah, I'm having a look. Is that the San Francisco?
Yes.
Okay.
San Francisco 2033 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just read the first couple of paragraphs. This is a science fiction piece by Jameson. Okay. Good morning. I'm gently awoken by my smartwatch's soothing female voice. It's a bit robotic, but does have a touch of personality and charm. Today is Monday. It's my birthday. Today is Monday, October 31st, 2033. It continues. Your weekly basic income is $3,000. What the fuck? And your weekly basic income of $3,432 has been deposited in your account. $1,049 was withheld to pay your student loan. $2,300 withheld for your landlord. Blackstone Hathaway. Shit, that's a bit more than last week. There must have been another inflation adjustment. So what did you do? Did you do it bit by bit?
Yeah, I forget which service I even used. It was a prompt generation tool where I could write a basic outline of the story, and it would just start filling in pieces, and then I could sort of roll the dice and get different paragraphs, and then choose a paragraph, and then say, okay, now take this and ingest it and do the next paragraph, and or I could even say, now delve deeper into this character's backstory and so on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love ChatGPT. I think it's amazing. Danny, we're using it now. Tell Jameson.
Well, we kind of used it as a joke first because it came up in the interview with Danny Scott, and so when I first played with it, I typed in some prompts to get a podcast description, and it was pretty good, but we didn't use it, and so. Then after the Danny Scott show, we did actually use it in his description. And I don't think they're good enough
all the
time.
Bring it up?
Yeah, I will. I don't think they're good enough all the time, but they give you a really good structure at least to work from.
I mean, it's a bit like with Rail Bedford. I do the match reports, but actually what happens is the commentator writes a match report and then I go through it and like update it.
Sure.
Just get in the style we want. But it saves me hours because he's done the majority of the work.
Yeah, and that's really what I think AI is going to be doing. It's not going to be completely displacing jobs. It's going to be another tool that gives people an order of magnitude performance improvement with what they're doing.
So this was 100% written by AI.
Okay, in this episode of this podcast, I sit down with Danny Scott, the CEO of Coin Corner, a Bitcoin exchange based in the UK. Danny has built Coin Corner into a successful business without relying on VC funding, and he shares his insights on the challenges and opportunities of doing so in a highly competitive world of Bitcoin. During our conversation, we discussed the current state of Bitcoin adoption and the importance of making cryptocurrency accessible and user-friendly for those who are new to the space. Danny shares his thoughts on the role of the Lightning Network in driving adoption and how it's, it's pretty, I haven't actually read this. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's like, as I read it, there's a couple of bits I'll change. So like making cryptocurrency accessible.
Yeah.
It would be of either making the cryptocurrency or Bitcoin accessible. Overall, it's a fascinating that's a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a fascinating conversation with a true industry leader. Tune in to hear Danny's insights on building a Bitcoin business, driving adoption in the future of Bitcoin industry. Do you know what I do like about it? But maybe I don't like about it. It feels more polished. It feels of something like maybe the BBC would do.
Well, maybe they're using AI. But there's bits that are a bit cringe, but like you could use that and then build out off it very easily.
Well, if I was writing a description, I reckon something like that, I'd spend 15, 20 minutes, but with ChatGPT, you can do it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You just read through it and edit it.
Yeah, I much prefer to edit something than have to write the whole thing from scratch.
And you are testing it for something else?
Well, after the show with David Zell, someone got in touch and said we could input the audio from the podcast and use it to generate show notes.
Mm-hmm.
which would definitely save time.
Yeah, and I've been doing that myself. I just wrapped up a month-long archival project where, my problem is pretty much every interview I've ever done is hosted by other people. And over the past 10 years, link rot sets in. People take their sites offline. We lose content. And so I got tired of that happening. And so I wrote some scripts to basically suck down every video and MP3 that I've ever been in over the past 10 years. And once I had them all, this is 45 gigabytes of files, I then wrote some other scripts to extract the audio, and then yet another script, and doing this all in bulk, of course, to take those audio files and transcribe them with OpenAI Whisper.
Okay, but is the finding bit, is that AI or is that just Google search?
Well, the finding bit was easy as a result of my OCD because I already have all of them linked on my website. So I wrote a script to basically parse through all the URLs on my website.
Can you bring up ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Just want to try something here. Try this one. Tell the story of Jameson, Lopp, because this is what is good, and Peter McCormack's day of fun shooting guns. This is what I love. I've done so many of these, just like stupid little things. Oh, so it's looking for a story. See, that's weird because we used to have it right in stories.
Maybe if we say, tell me a fictional story.
Yeah, so that's weird because it used to do that. I was getting it to write stories.
This actually goes back to censorship. They've really been clamping down on what the AI can do. All of these different AI services because people are abusing them.
Yeah, but hold on. Then what's the point in having it? Are they worried about like university kids having their coursework written on it?
There's so many different things that people are worried about, whether it's just like low-level biases that are inherent in this stuff. Because all of this stuff is being trained off of data, and all of the data is being generated by humans, and humans have biases, and so it's going to be representative of some subset of humanity.
I mean, it's like the internet or Bitcoin can be used for good or bad, right?
Yeah.
We know that with Bitcoin, and I always go back to Peter Van Valkenburg's Senate testimony where he said, for every person you talk about using Bitcoin for money laundering, I'm going to tell you about somebody using Bitcoin in Nigeria to campaign against police violence. I always think that's a great way of telling the story of technology. AI, we can use this to write descriptions and save us time, to do show notes. I'm going to come back to that as well, by the way. But also, kids are going to be able to use it to not have to do coursework. The cat's out of the bag.
Well, this is kind of like security. This is going to be a never-ending battle. So, I've already seen stories of professors and teachers saying that they're suspecting certain students of using these AI text generators to do their essays for them. And then just in the past week or so, we saw one university student create a quote-unquote AI detector.
I heard about this.
But this is going to go back and forth. Then the AI is going to be modified, or people are going to basically be hacking, quote unquote hacking. With this, it's more about trying different prompts to work their way around the filters. That's what I would say these AI hackers have been doing. Is we're understanding that the people who are running the servers for this stuff, they're filtering things, especially on the image generators, because of course there's a lot of crazy stuff you could do there. But there's always ways to work your way around it. These are essentially this prompt generation is a new sphere of kind of programming language. It's just not a very well-defined programming language, and so people are trying to really push the limits of what's possible with it. And as they do that, the folks that are running these services are then saying, oh, we need to stop that. And so it's just, the same old issue of censorship.
So interesting, Danny's just doing a test on an AI content detector.
And this is the description from that Danny Scott show that was 100% AI.
And it thinks it's 2% human generated.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Interesting. Go and get one of our other descriptions.
All right.
And just see what happens with that. Going back to the show notes, Danny, what I don't know is if it can read the content, how does it know what is something we would want as a show note?
Again, I think it probably gives you a massive list and you would then have to just edit it.
Yeah. Same with the timestamps. How does it know what a section is?
I don't know if it could do timestamp.
No, it
Well,
can. The email I forwarded you this morning, right? That was, he said he can do timestamps. If it gets to the point where it can do show notes, timestamps, and transcriptions, like it puts people out of work for us.
I mean, here you go. I've just put another description in that was human generated, and it's got it 100%.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating. So I wonder how it's doing that. None of the rules are. But look, whatever. The cat is out of the bag with this.
Yep.
People use it for good and people use it for bad. I think in this scenario, there's a lot of good that you can use it for and efficiencies. The downside of that is people potentially losing jobs. You could identify that in our world. I struggle to see too much evil it can be used for on text generation yet, but it feels like we're now in this very early stage of this AI thing that might move quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
the robots are coming.
well, I think the very first thing I would look at is, what do a lot of scammers do, and why couldn't you have an AI bot that basically follows the rules for some particular scam that people perpetrate over the internet?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Can you ask them to write code?
Yeah.
I saw somebody said they put some coding, I can't remember what the language was, and they wanted it converted to Python, and it converted it to Python and executed and worked instantly.
Wow.
I can't remember what can you think of a language you would convert from something to Python?
You said save 2 days of work.
Huh?
Save them 2 days of work.
So that's Jeremy saying. So you've seen that tweet, yeah. So do you remember what code it was? Like from what?
I don't. It was a function. I don't remember which kind of function. I don't know if it was JavaScript or not.
So 2 days of work was saved, converted from one programming language to another. Again, fascinating and great. Puts people out of work potentially, but drives efficiencies.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, as a programmer, I've always found it to be incredibly inefficient, basically with the interface of how I talk to the machine and how I instruct the machine of what I want it to do. This is why programming pays so well and why it's so difficult, is because the machine does exactly what we tell it to. And the vast majority of time, what we're telling it is not actually what we want. And that's because of the limitations of programming languages and just the complexity of software. So, my ideal future is a Star Trek future, computer, create a simulation that does this thing. And then, a few hours go by and it gives you the result or whatever. And even past that, right now we have text-based AI. We're prompting it now with, instead of having to learn the syntax and semantics of some foreign computer programming language, you're able to use English and probably other languages. I'm not familiar with what they've done with regard to other foreign languages, but there's no reason why you couldn't use any human language. And even that's a huge leap forward, but that is only the beginning. I actually wrote an article about Elon Musk and Twitter and stuff earlier last year, where I said, what I'm really looking forward to is direct neural interface with the machines. Now, of course, there's pros and cons, but if you think about it from an efficiency standpoint, of course, there's huge security ramifications, but from an efficiency standpoint, even what we're doing right now, me having to think something, then having to translate it into English, and then it has to get transferred, through the air and interpreted by your ears and turned into signals in your brain. That is incredibly inefficient when there's no reason why we couldn't have a direct, neural electrical signal to neural electrical signal interface.
Yeah, but do you want that?
Well, yes, I'm sure this will create more dystopian outcomes as well.
So Danny's found the tweet. I just gave ChatGPT 200 lines of JavaScript code and asked it to translate the code into Python. The code passes text using regular expressions. It was complex. 2 minutes later, I had Python code that worked flawlessly. The thing just saved me a couple of days of work. That's fucking insane. Yeah. So firstly, I think Twitter is going to get damaged by this. I think there are nefarious actors, and as well as just some morons, who are going to spin up accounts with ChatGPT and start arguing.
Oh, I've seen them already, and I've actually I've run the Turing test questions against some of them, and it's been obvious that they're not human.
Mad, but like it's just going to get to a stage where talking to people you don't know is going to be pointless. Like I almost going to get to a point with my Twitter, I'm just like only want to see people I know. That's going to become pointless. But I'm also like looking forward towards this kind of not looking forward as in excited, but just looking forward considering like the singularity of all these technologies coming together. Quantum, AI, Neuralink. I think it's a bit shit. I think I don't want to go and live in a cabin and only like speak to humans and have no technology. I can see a scenario where people start to reject technology and want to live without it. I can see a scenario where I get a bit older and I'm like, do you know what? I don't want a phone, maybe an old dial-up hand phone, and go and live in a cabin somewhere with a dog. Danny pops around occasionally.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if you're being bombarded with noise all day long. And, I'm an optimist, so I think that there will be solutions to all of this. And one solution, for example, to the issue of noise and reputation on social networks is actually something I've talked about a few times, Hive. They're essentially mapping social networks. They're starting with Twitter, but they've mapped something like 400 different quote unquote communities, or you call them interest groups or specialties on Twitter. And, they're just using the sort of connection graphs to show, where are people focusing their attention. And it's a very hard thing to fake. You can spin up 1 million bots, but you can't convince 1 million people to follow them.
Unless you're a really good bot.
Yeah, unless you're actually creating real valuable content, in which case, maybe it's a signal bot, not a noise bot.
What's that film where the guy falls in love with a AI bot? Is it him, her, she?
Or her.
Her? Yeah. Have you seen that film?
Yeah.
I mean, a brilliant film. She was pretty convincing. He fell in love.
Yeah, I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah. It's when they combine it with a real doll. Have you ever seen that film, Lance and the Real Doll? Yeah, it's a good film. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like all going a bit too far.
Well, this is the thing, right? Is that this is why it's great to be a technologist, because technology is not just going forward linearly, it's accelerating. And so it is very exciting to keep track of. I mean, it's also very scary because humans generally don't like change, or at least we like to say that we don't like change. We're very adaptive humans. So in hindsight, you look back over the past few years or decades or whatever, and change has been crazy, and yet we somehow keep adapting to it. And so we will keep adapting. It will keep creating more and more weirdness. If someone from today is looking 10 years in the future, I can guarantee you their mind will be blown. But the people who are living in the present day in the future will be like, yep, this is how things are now.